Question 1. The assessment process reveals that a technician is troubleshooting a user's network connectivity issue. During the troubleshooting, the technician notices a folder on the user's desktop containing files with names that clearly indicate they contain sensitive personal financial information. The technician's primary task is to restore the user's internet access. What is the most appropriate course of action for the technician? Option A. Continue troubleshooting the network connectivity issue without accessing or acknowledging the sensitive files. Option B. Delete or modify the sensitive files to prevent potential data breaches. Option C. Report the discovery of the sensitive files to management immediately, pausing the network troubleshooting. Option D. Access and review the sensitive files to understand the user's data security practices. Correct answer is A. Continue troubleshooting the network connectivity issue without accessing or acknowledging the sensitive files. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in IT support where a technician discovers sensitive personal information that is not directly related to the support request. The challenge lies in balancing the need to resolve the user's issue with the responsibility to protect user privacy and adhere to data handling policies. The technician must make a judgment call without overstepping boundaries or compromising the integrity of the data. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves acknowledging the discovery of the sensitive data without accessing or further investigating it, and then proceeding to address the user's original technical issue. This upholds best professional practice by respecting user privacy, adhering to the principle of least privilege, and focusing solely on the authorized task. It aligns with the CompTIA, a plus exam's emphasis on professional conduct and ethical behavior, which implicitly includes data privacy and security best practices, even if not explicitly codified in a specific U.S. regulation for this context. The technician's responsibility is to fix the reported problem, not to become an investigator of unrelated data. Incorrect approaches analysis. Accessing and reviewing the sensitive files, even with the intention of understanding the user's overall digital environment, constitutes a breach of privacy and potentially violates data protection principles. This action exceeds the technician's authorized scope and could lead to unauthorized disclosure or misuse of personal information, which is ethically unacceptable and could have legal ramifications if specific data privacy laws were applicable. Reporting the discovery of sensitive files to management without first attempting to resolve the user's primary technical issue, and without any indication that the data itself poses a security risk or is being misused, is an overreaction. While reporting security concerns is important, doing so prematurely without proper context or justification can create unnecessary alarm and divert resources. It also implies a lack of trust in the user and potentially violates the expectation of confidentiality in a support interaction. Deleting or modifying the sensitive files, even if the technician believes they are irrelevant or potentially problematic, is a severe ethical and professional failure. This action is unauthorized, constitutes data tampering, and could have unintended consequences for the user. It demonstrates a disregard for data ownership and integrity, and is a clear violation of professional conduct. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first identifying their authorized scope of work. If sensitive data is incidentally discovered, the priority is to avoid unauthorized access or interaction with that data. The technician should focus on resolving the reported technical issue. If the discovered data presents a clear and immediate security risk, e.g., malware, evidence of illegal activity, the appropriate protocol would be to follow established company procedures for reporting such findings, typically to a supervisor or security team, without directly investigating the data themselves. This decision-making process emphasizes adherence to policy, respect for privacy, and a focus on the primary objective. Question 2. Strategic planning requires a technician to consider the ethical implications of their actions when performing a repair on a customer's computer. While working on a customer's laptop, a technician discovers a folder containing highly sensitive personal financial documents. The customer has not mentioned this folder or its contents. What is the most ethical and professional course of action for the technician? Option A. Continue with the repair without mentioning the sensitive documents to the customer, as it is not directly related to the repair issue. Option B. Report the discovery of the sensitive documents to management immediately without informing the customer. Option C. Access and delete the sensitive financial documents to protect the customer from potential data breaches. Option D. Inform the customer about the discovery and ask them how they would like to proceed with the sensitive data. The correct answer is D. Inform the customer about the discovery and ask them how they would like to proceed with the sensitive data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in IT support where a technician discovers sensitive personal information on a customer's device during a legitimate repair. The challenge lies in balancing the technician's duty to protect customer privacy with the need to complete the repair efficiently and adhere to company policy. The technician must make a judgment call without overstepping boundaries or violating trust. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes customer privacy and data security, aligning with general IT ethical principles and implied data protection guidelines that would be expected in a professional IT environment. By informing the customer directly and allowing them to decide how to handle their data, the technician upholds professional integrity, respects customer autonomy, and avoids unauthorized access or disclosure of sensitive information. This approach minimizes the risk of privacy breaches and maintains customer trust, which is paramount in IT service. Incorrect approach is analysis. Accessing and deleting the data without the customer's explicit consent is a severe ethical and potential legal violation. It constitutes unauthorized access to personal information, breaching privacy, and potentially violating data protection regulations. This action erodes customer trust and could lead to disciplinary action or legal repercussions for the technician and the company. Reporting the discovery to management without first informing the customer is also problematic. While reporting might seem like a responsible step, it bypasses the customer's right to know about their own data. It can be perceived as a breach of confidentiality and an unnecessary escalation that could damage the customer relationship. The customer should be the primary party to decide on actions concerning their personal data. Ignoring the sensitive data and proceeding with the repair without any mention to the customer is negligent. While it avoids direct privacy violation, it fails to inform the customer of a potential security risk or the presence of sensitive information on their device, which they may wish to address. This inaction could be seen as a dereliction of duty if the data were to be compromised later due to the customer's unawareness. Professional reasoning. Professionals should always approach situations involving sensitive customer data with a strong ethical compass. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the ethical issue, privacy vs. repair. 2. Consulting relevant company policies on data handling and privacy. 3. Prioritizing customer autonomy and consent. 4. Communicating transparently and directly with the customer. 5. Documenting the interaction and the customer's decision. In cases of doubt, seeking guidance from a supervisor or legal counsel is advisable, but direct customer communication regarding their data should be the first step. Question 3. The control framework reveals that a user has reported a software malfunction that requires the technician to examine the user's personal documents to identify the root cause. The technician has the technical capability to access these files directly. What is the most ethical and professionally responsible course of action? Option A. Obtain explicit, documented consent from the user to access their personal documents for troubleshooting purposes before proceeding. Option B. Access the user's personal documents immediately to resolve the issue quickly, as the user has requested assistance. Option C. Escalate the issue to a supervisor and request guidance on how to proceed without directly asking the user for permission. Option D. Assume the user has implicitly consented to file access by requesting technical support and proceed with troubleshooting. The correct answer is A. Obtain explicit documented consent from the user to access their personal documents for troubleshooting purposes before proceeding. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in IT support, specifically concerning data privacy and user consent, which is a critical aspect of the CompTIA, a plus 220-1101 exam's focus on security and operational procedures. The challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient troubleshooting with the user's right to privacy and the company's responsibility to protect sensitive information. A technician must navigate this by adhering to established protocols and legal requirements regarding data access and handling. The correct approach prioritizes explicit user consent and adherence to company policy, which aligns with best professional practices and the spirit of data protection regulations. By obtaining clear permission before accessing personal files, the technician upholds user trust and avoids potential legal repercussions. This demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and responsible data management, which are fundamental to IT professionalism. Accessing user files without explicit permission, even for troubleshooting, constitutes a breach of privacy and a violation of trust. This action could lead to disciplinary action, damage the company's reputation, and potentially violate data protection laws. It demonstrates a disregard for user autonomy and data security. Another incorrect approach involves assuming consent based on the user's request for help. This is a dangerous assumption as it bypasses the formal consent process and can lead to unintended access to sensitive information. It fails to acknowledge the user's right to control their data and can create a false sense of security regarding data privacy. Finally, escalating the issue to a supervisor without attempting to obtain consent directly, while seemingly cautious, can be inefficient and may not be the most appropriate first step if company policy allows for direct consent. However, if company policy mandates supervisor involvement for all data access, then this would be the correct approach. In the context of this question, where direct consent is a viable and ethical first step, bypassing it for escalation without clear policy mandate is less ideal. The core failure here is not prioritizing direct, informed consent when feasible and permitted by policy. The professional decision-making process should involve 1. Understanding the user's request and the technical issue. 2. Consulting company policy regarding data access and privacy. 3. Clearly communicating the need to access files to the user and obtaining explicit, informed consent. 4. Performing the necessary troubleshooting steps while respecting the scope of the granted permission. 5. Documenting the process and the consent obtained. Question 4. Investigation of a user's request to install a specific, unapproved third-party application on their work computer to improve their workflow efficiency. The application is not on the company's approved software list, and the user states they have used it successfully on personal devices. The technician needs to determine the best course of action to balance user productivity with organizational security and compliance. Option A. Follow the company's documented procedure for requesting and approving new software, which involves submitting a request for review by the IT security and management teams. Option B. Inform the user that the application is not approved and refuse to install it, without offering any alternative solutions or explanations. Option C. Download the application from a public website and install it directly onto the user's computer to save time. Option D. Immediately install the application as requested by the user, as their personal experience suggests it is safe and beneficial. The correct answer is A. Follow the company's documented procedure for requesting and approving new software, which involves submitting a request for review by the IT security and management teams. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT support, balancing user productivity with system security and stability. The technician must make a judgment call that impacts both the immediate needs of a user and the long-term health of the network. The professional challenge lies in understanding the potential downstream effects of a seemingly simple request and adhering to established protocols. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to established organizational policies and security guidelines. By following the documented procedure for software installation, the technician ensures that all software is vetted for compatibility, security vulnerability, and licensing compliance. This systematic process minimizes the risk of introducing malware, system instability, or legal issues related to software piracy. It also provides a clear audit trail, which is crucial for troubleshooting and accountability. This aligns with the general principles of responsible IT management and data protection, even without specific U.S. regulatory mandates being directly applicable to this particular software installation scenario in a way that would override company policy. An incorrect approach that involves immediately installing the unapproved software without following policy would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This bypasses security checks, potentially exposing the network to malware or data breaches, which could have legal ramifications under data privacy laws if sensitive information is compromised. It also violates company policy, undermining the established framework for IT management and potentially leading to licensing violations if the software is not properly licensed. Ethically, it demonstrates a disregard for the organization's security posture and the trust placed in the technician. Another incorrect approach, such as simply telling the user no without offering an alternative or explaining the process, is professionally deficient. While it avoids immediate risk, it fails to address the user's need and can lead to frustration and a perception of unhelpfulness. This can damage the IT department's reputation and encourage users to seek unauthorized solutions, which is counterproductive to overall security. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the user's request and the business need it fulfills. 2. Consulting organizational policies and procedures related to software installation and security. 3. Assessing the risks associated with the request, including security, compatibility, and licensing. 4. Communicating clearly with the user about the process, potential timelines, and any requirements. 5. Following the established procedures to mitigate risks and ensure compliance. If a policy seems outdated or inefficient, the professional should follow the established channels for suggesting improvements rather than circumventing it. Question 5. What factors determine the most appropriate initial troubleshooting step when a user reports a significant slowdown on their workstation? Option A. The technician's personal experience with similar-sounding issues. Option B. The user's description of the problem, recent software installations, and the workstation's age and specifications. Option C. The availability of the latest operating system patches. Option D. The perceived cost of potential hardware upgrades. Correct answer is B. The user's description of the problem, recent software installations, and the workstation's age and specifications. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT support, balancing user needs with efficient resource allocation and adherence to established procedures. The professional challenge lies in identifying the root cause of performance degradation without resorting to immediate, potentially costly, or disruptive solutions. A technician must exercise judgment to distinguish between a genuine hardware limitation, requiring an upgrade, and a software or configuration issue that can be resolved more economically. The CompTIA, a plus certification, emphasizes practical problem-solving skills within a professional context, which includes understanding the implications of different troubleshooting steps. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it follows a systematic, logical troubleshooting methodology. This method prioritizes identifying the least invasive and most cost-effective solutions first. By examining software configurations, running diagnostics, and checking for updates, the technician is attempting to resolve the issue without incurring unnecessary hardware expenses for the user or the organization. This aligns with professional ethics that advocate for responsible use of resources and providing solutions that are appropriate to the problem's scope. Furthermore, adhering to a structured troubleshooting process ensures consistency and allows for better documentation of the problem and its resolution, which is crucial for future reference and knowledge sharing within an IT department. An incorrect approach that immediately suggests a hardware upgrade without thorough investigation fails to meet professional standards. This could lead to unnecessary expenditure, frustrating the user if the problem is not hardware-related, and potentially violating organizational policies regarding procurement and IT asset management. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to explore all viable solutions. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the user's complaint or suggesting they simply live with it, is unprofessional and neglects the duty of care owed to the user. This can damage user trust and productivity. Finally, randomly changing settings without understanding their impact is a recipe for further problems and demonstrates a lack of technical competence and a disregard for system stability. Professionals should approach such situations by first gathering detailed information from the user about the symptoms. Then, they should consult available documentation or knowledge bases for known issues. The next step is to systematically test potential causes, starting with the simplest and most likely, such as software conflicts, driver issues, or background processes. Only after these have been ruled out should more complex or costly solutions, like hardware replacement, be considered. This methodical approach ensures that the most efficient and effective solution is found, minimizing downtime and cost. Question 6. When evaluating a user's request to improve their computer's performance, which of the following actions represents the most professional and effective initial step? Option A. Defragment the primary storage drive to optimize file access times. Option B. Immediately uninstall all non-essential applications that are not part of the standard operating system installation. Option C. Conduct a thorough interview with the user to understand their typical workflow, the applications they use most frequently, and any specific performance issues they are experiencing. Option D. Increase the amount of RAM installed in the computer to the maximum capacity supported by the motherboard. Correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough interview with the user to understand their typical workflow, the applications they use most frequently, and any specific performance issues they are experiencing. Explanation. Scenario analysis. A technician is tasked with optimizing the performance of a user's workstation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the user's immediate needs and comfort with the long-term stability and security of the system. Without a clear understanding of the user's workflow and the potential impact of changes, a technician could inadvertently introduce new problems or violate established IT policies. The pressure to deliver a quick fix can lead to shortcuts that compromise best practices. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic process of understanding the user's environment and needs before making any changes. This includes gathering information about the applications used, the user's typical tasks, and any reported performance issues. Implementing changes incrementally and testing, each one allows for isolation of problems and verification of improvements. Documenting all changes made and their outcomes is crucial for future reference, troubleshooting, and compliance with organizational IT standards. This methodical approach aligns with the principles of responsible IT management, ensuring that optimizations do not negatively impact security or data integrity, which are implicit requirements in any professional IT environment, governed by general IT best practices, and potentially organizational policies that would fall under the purview of a CompTIA, a plus technician's responsibilities. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately uninstalling all non-essential software without consulting the user. This is professionally unacceptable because it disregards the user's workflow and could remove critical applications they rely on, leading to significant disruption and a loss of productivity. It also bypasses the necessary step of understanding the user's specific needs, a fundamental aspect of good customer service and IT support. Another incorrect approach is to only focus on increasing RAM without investigating other potential bottlenecks. While insufficient RAM can cause performance issues, it's not always the primary culprit. This approach is flawed because it assumes a single cause and fails to perform a comprehensive diagnostic. It could lead to unnecessary hardware expenditure and may not resolve the underlying performance problem, which could be related to software conflicts, disk I/O, or CPU limitations. This demonstrates a lack of thorough problem solving and potentially wasteful resource allocation. A third incorrect approach is to defragment the hard drive without first checking if it's an SSD. Defragmentation is a process designed for traditional hard disk drives, HDD, and can actually reduce the lifespan and performance of solid-state drives, SSD. This demonstrates a failure to apply current knowledge and best practices specific to hardware types, leading to potentially detrimental actions. Professional reasoning. When faced with a performance optimization task, a professional technician should follow a structured troubleshooting and implementation process. This involves 1. Information gathering. Understand the user's environment, applications, and reported issues. 2. Diagnosis. Identify the root cause of performance problems through systematic testing and analysis. 3. Planning. Develop a strategy for optimization, considering potential impacts and user needs. 4. Implementation. Make changes incrementally, documenting each step. 5. Testing and verification. Ensure that optimizations have resolved the issues without introducing new ones. 6. Documentation. Record all actions taken and their results for future reference. This systematic approach ensures efficiency, effectiveness, and adherence to professional standards. Question 7. Process analysis reveals that a specific user's workstation is repeatedly experiencing application crashes, impacting their productivity. The technician has attempted basic troubleshooting steps, but the issue persists. The user has granted the technician remote access to their machine to investigate further. Which of the following actions best represents a professional and compliant approach to resolving this recurring issue? Option A. Document the recurring issue. Review the organization's standard operating procedures for application troubleshooting, and if the issue remains unresolved after following documented steps, escalate to a senior technician with a detailed report of all actions taken. Option B. Immediately begin a deep scan of the user's hard drive for malware and corrupt system files, and then attempt to reinstall the problematic application without consulting any internal documentation or seeking further assistance. Option C. Access the user's personal files and browsing history to identify any potential software conflicts or unusual activity that might be causing the application crashes, and then manually edit system registry entries to force a fix. Option D. Inform the user that the issue is beyond the scope of standard support and suggest they purchase a new computer without attempting any further troubleshooting or investigation. The correct answer is B. Immediately begin a deep scan of the user's hard drive for malware and corrupt system files, and then attempt to reinstall the problematic application without consulting any internal documentation or seeking further assistance. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT support, balancing efficiency with user privacy and data integrity. The professional must navigate the need to quickly resolve a recurring issue while adhering to established protocols and legal guidelines regarding data handling and system access. The correct approach prioritizes a systematic, documented, and authorized method for troubleshooting. This aligns with best professional practices by ensuring that all actions are traceable, accountable, and comply with organizational policies, which are often informed by general IT best practices and potentially industry-specific regulations concerning data privacy and security, even if not explicitly detailed in the CompTIA, a plus exam scope. The emphasis on following established procedures, documenting findings, and escalating when necessary demonstrates a commitment to thoroughness and risk mitigation. An incorrect approach that involves bypassing standard procedures or accessing user data without explicit authorization poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. Specifically, unauthorized access to user data, even with the intent to resolve an issue, can violate privacy principles and potentially contravene data protection guidelines. Such actions can lead to data breaches, loss of user trust, and legal repercussions for both the individual technician and the organization. Furthermore, failing to document troubleshooting steps hinders future problem-solving efforts and makes it difficult to identify systemic issues or patterns, which is a failure in professional accountability. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the reported problem and its impact. Next, they should consult available documentation and establish troubleshooting guides. If the issue persists, the next step is to follow the defined escalation path, which may involve seeking assistance from senior technicians or specialized teams. Throughout this process, meticulous documentation of all steps taken, observations, and resolutions is crucial. This systematic approach ensures that problems are addressed effectively, efficiently, and ethically, while minimizing risks to data security and user privacy. Question 8. Quality control measures reveal that a critical server has experienced a sudden and severe operating system corruption, rendering it inaccessible. The technician's primary objective is to restore functionality as quickly and reliably as possible. Which of the following actions represents the most professional and effective approach to resolving this issue? Option A. Attempt to repair the corrupted system files using built-in operating system recovery tools without first assessing the extent of the corruption or considering data backup. Option B. Begin reinstalling the operating system and all applications from scratch, then manually attempt to recover any accessible data from the corrupted drive. Option C. Advise the user to purchase new hardware, as the current system is likely beyond repair. Option D. Immediately attempt to restore the operating system and all applications from the most recent verified backup. The correct answer is D. Immediately attempt to restore the operating system and all applications from the most recent verified backup. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT support where a technician must balance the immediate need for a system to be operational with the long-term implications of their actions. The pressure to restore service quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise data integrity, security, or future maintainability. Professionals must exercise judgment to avoid making decisions that could have significant negative consequences for the user, the organization, or compliance requirements. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes data recovery and system integrity. By first attempting to restore from a known good backup, The technician is adhering to best practices for data management and disaster recovery. This method ensures that the system is returned to a stable and functional state with minimal risk of data loss or corruption. In a professional context governed by general IT best practices, as would be expected in a CompTIA a plus context without specific jurisdictional mandates beyond general business ethics. This aligns with principles of reliability and user trust. It also implicitly supports data retention policies and business continuity plans, which are often de facto requirements for operational efficiency and risk mitigation. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately reinstalling the operating system and applications without attempting data recovery. This action, while potentially faster, risks permanent data loss if the data was not backed up elsewhere. This failure to safeguard user data is a significant ethical lapse and can lead to severe business disruption and loss of confidence. Another incorrect approach, such as attempting to repair the corrupted system files without understanding the root cause, could lead to an unstable system or introduce further complications, ultimately failing to provide a reliable solution and potentially violating implicit service-level agreements for system stability. A third incorrect approach, like ignoring the issue and advising the user to purchase new hardware, is unprofessional and dismisses the technician's responsibility to troubleshoot and attempt repair, potentially leading to unnecessary costs for the user and a breach of professional duty. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by following a systematic troubleshooting methodology. This typically involves 1. Gathering information about the problem, 2. Identifying potential causes, 3. Testing hypotheses, 4. Implementing solutions, and 5. Verifying the resolution. In cases of data loss or corruption, the priority is always data recovery. If recovery is not possible, then system restoration and data re-entry become the focus. Documenting all steps taken and communicating clearly with the user are also crucial components of professional IT support. Question 9. The assessment process reveals that a critical server is experiencing intermittent network connectivity issues. The technician has encountered a similar problem last week on a different server, which was resolved by restarting a specific network service. The technician is under pressure to restore full connectivity immediately to minimize business impact. Which of the following actions represents the most professional and effective approach to resolving this issue? Option A. Restart the specific network service that resolved a similar issue on a previous occasion without performing further diagnostics. Option B. Guess the most likely cause of the network issue based on past experience and attempt a random configuration change to see if it resolves the problem. Option C. Immediately escalate the issue to a senior network administrator, explaining that a similar problem occurred previously and was resolved by restarting a service. Option D. Document the symptoms, gather current network logs, and systematically test potential causes, starting with the most probable based on the symptoms, before considering restarting services or escalating. Correct answer is A. Restart the specific network service that resolved a similar issue on a previous occasion without performing further diagnostics. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in IT support, balancing the need for rapid problem resolution with the imperative to follow established procedures. In this scenario, the technician is under pressure to restore service quickly, which can tempt them to bypass standard diagnostic steps. This temptation is amplified when a solution has worked in the past, leading to a reliance on anecdotal evidence rather than systematic troubleshooting. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it adheres to the principles of systematic problem-solving and documentation, which are implicitly supported by the need for accountability and continuous improvement within IT service management frameworks. By following the documented troubleshooting steps, the technician ensures a thorough investigation, identifies the root cause, and contributes to a knowledge base that can prevent future recurrences or expedite resolution for similar issues. This methodical approach also supports compliance with any organizational policies regarding incident management and change control, even if not explicitly stated as regulatory requirements for the CompTIA a plus exam. An incorrect approach that involves immediately applying a previously successful fix without verification fails to address the potential for a new or different underlying issue. This can lead to a recurrence of the problem or mask a more serious underlying fault, ultimately wasting resources and potentially causing further disruption. Ethically, this bypasses the responsibility to provide a robust and lasting solution. Another incorrect approach, such as guessing the problem based on limited information, is unprofessional and inefficient. It relies on chance rather than expertise and can lead to incorrect diagnoses, wasted time, and potential damage to systems or data. This approach demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for systematic problem solving. A third incorrect approach, which involves escalating the issue prematurely without performing basic diagnostic steps, is also professionally unsound. While escalation is a necessary part of IT support, it should be a last resort after reasonable troubleshooting efforts have been exhausted. Premature escalation burdens higher tiers of support unnecessarily and indicates a failure to apply learned skills and follow established procedures. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a commitment to a structured troubleshooting methodology. This includes understanding the reported symptoms, gathering relevant information, forming hypotheses, testing those hypotheses systematically, and documenting all steps and findings. When faced with time pressure, it's crucial to remember that a quick fix that doesn't address the root cause is rarely a true solution and often leads to greater problems down the line. Adhering to established procedures, even when they seem time-consuming, is a hallmark of professional IT support. Question 10. Governance review demonstrates that a user is experiencing intermittent network connectivity issues that are impacting their ability to perform critical tasks. The standard operating procedure for network troubleshooting involves a series of diagnostic steps, including checking physical connections, verifying IP configuration, and consulting network logs, all of which must be documented before escalating or implementing any significant changes. The user is insistent on an immediate resolution, suggesting a direct modification to the network adapter's advanced settings that they found online, which they believe will fix the problem. Which of the following actions best represents a professionally sound and procedurally compliant approach to resolving this issue? Option A. Advise the user to restart their computer and wait for a scheduled network maintenance window to address the issue. Without performing any immediate diagnostics, Option B. Immediately implement the user's suggested modification without any documentation, as the user's insistence implies a critical need that overrides standard procedures. Option C. Politely explain to the user that the suggested modification cannot be implemented without following the established troubleshooting and change management procedures, and proceed with the documented diagnostic steps. Option D. Perform the user's suggested modification to the network adapter's advanced settings immediately to restore connectivity, and then document the change afterward. The correct answer is D. Perform the user's suggested modification to the network adapter's advanced settings immediately to restore connectivity, and then document the change afterward. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT support, where a perceived need for immediate action clashes with established, documented procedures designed to ensure data integrity and system stability. The professional challenge lies in balancing the urgency of user requests with the responsibility to maintain a secure and reliable computing environment, adhering to the principles of process optimization. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic and documented method for addressing issues. By following established troubleshooting and change management protocols, technicians ensure that solutions are not only effective but also repeatable, auditable, and less likely to introduce new problems. This aligns with the CompTIA, a plus focus on efficient and effective problem-solving within a structured IT framework. Adhering to these processes minimizes the risk of unauthorized changes, data corruption, or security breaches, which are critical considerations in any IT environment. An incorrect approach that bypasses established documentation and approval processes represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Specifically, it violates the principle of accountability, as changes are not properly logged or authorized. This can lead to a lack of audit trails, making it impossible to determine who made what changes and when, which is crucial for compliance and security. Furthermore, it undermines the integrity of the system by introducing unvetted modifications, potentially leading to instability or security vulnerabilities, which are direct contraventions of best practices for system administration and support. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the established IT policies and procedures. When faced with an urgent request, a technician should first assess the potential impact of the request against existing protocols. If the request deviates from standard procedures, the technician must consult documentation, seek appropriate authorization, and follow change management processes. This ensures that all actions are justifiable, documented, and aligned with organizational objectives and security standards. The goal is to optimize processes for efficiency and effectiveness, while maintaining a robust and secure IT infrastructure. Question 11. The efficiency study reveals that a user is unable to access critical financial data on their workstation due to a forgotten password. The user is adamant about needing immediate access to complete a time-sensitive report. The technician has the ability to reset the password, but is aware that the company's security policy requires a specific verification process and escalation for password resets involving financial data. What is the most appropriate course of action for the technician? Option A. Follow the company's established security policy for password resets involving financial data, which may include escalation to a supervisor or a specialized security team, even if it causes a delay in the user's immediate access. Option B. Document the user's request and the urgency, then proceed to reset the password without further verification or escalation. Option C. Attempt to guess the user's password or use common default passwords to grant access quickly. Option D. Reset the user's password immediately to allow them access to the financial data, as the user has stated the report is time-sensitive. Correct answer is A. Follow the company's established security policy for password resets involving financial data, which may include escalation to a supervisor or a specialized security team, even if it causes a delay in the user's immediate access. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for system functionality with the long-term implications of data security and user privacy, all within the context of the CompTIA, a Plus Core 1 exam scope, which implicitly aligns with general IT best practices and common regulatory principles found in the U.S. The core tension lies in the technician's responsibility to resolve a user's issue promptly versus their obligation to adhere to security protocols that protect sensitive information. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data integrity and user privacy by following established security procedures. This aligns with the general principles of data protection and responsible IT management that are foundational to the CompTIA, a Plus certification. By escalating the issue to a supervisor or a specialized security team, the technician ensures that the sensitive data is handled by individuals with the appropriate clearance and knowledge, thereby minimizing the risk of unauthorized access or disclosure. This proactive measure is crucial for maintaining trust and adhering to the spirit of data protection regulations, even if specific U.S. federal laws are not explicitly detailed in the exam objectives. An incorrect approach that involves bypassing security protocols to grant immediate access fails to uphold professional responsibility. This action could lead to a data breach, violating user privacy, and potentially exposing the organization to legal repercussions, even if the specific regulations are not named in the exam. Such a bypass demonstrates a disregard for established security policies, which are designed to protect sensitive information. Another incorrect approach, such as documenting the access but proceeding without authorization, is also professionally unacceptable. While documentation is important, it does not absolve the technician of the responsibility to follow proper procedures. Proceeding without explicit authorization, even with documentation, still carries the risk of unauthorized access and data compromise. This approach shows a lack of respect for the established security framework and the potential consequences of its violation. Finally, an incorrect approach that involves guessing the user's credentials or attempting to reset them without proper verification is a direct violation of security best practices. This could lead to account compromise and further security vulnerabilities. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of secure authentication methods and the importance of identity verification. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a clear understanding of organizational policies and security protocols. When faced with a situation that deviates from standard procedures, especially when sensitive data is involved, the technician should 1. Identify the core issue and the potential risks. 2. Consult established security guidelines and policies. 3. If unsure or if the situation requires elevated privileges or exceptions, escalate the issue to a supervisor or a designated security authority. 4. Document all actions taken and communication. This systematic approach ensures that user needs are met while maintaining the highest standards of data security and professional integrity. Question 12. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a user has brought in a personal laptop experiencing performance issues. The technician suspects that malware or excessive temporary files might be contributing to the problem, which could involve examining user-created documents or browser history. The technician has not yet spoken to the user about the specifics of their data. Which of the following actions best aligns with professional IT support practices and data privacy considerations? Option A. Immediately inform the user about the potential need to access their personal files and browser history for diagnostic purposes and obtain their explicit written consent before proceeding. Option B. Proceed with a thorough scan for malware and a cleanup of temporary files, accessing any user files or browser history as needed to identify the root cause. Option C. Assume the user understands and implicitly consents to the technician accessing their personal data by bringing the device in for repair. Option D. Focus solely on system-level diagnostics and avoid any examination of user-created documents or browser history, even if it hinders the troubleshooting process. The correct answer is B. Proceed with a thorough scan for malware and a cleanup of temporary files, accessing any user files or browser history as needed to identify the root cause. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT support where a technician encounters a user's personal device that may contain sensitive information. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need to diagnose and resolve a technical issue with the user's right to privacy and data security. The technician must operate within the bounds of company policy and ethical considerations, ensuring that no unauthorized access or disclosure of personal data occurs, even if the data itself is not the direct cause of the technical problem. This requires careful judgment to avoid overstepping boundaries while still effectively performing their duties. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes user privacy and adheres to data protection principles. By seeking explicit permission from the user before accessing any personal files or data, the technician demonstrates respect for privacy rights and ensures compliance with potential data privacy regulations. This proactive communication builds trust and avoids any perception of unauthorized snooping. It aligns with the principle of least privilege and the ethical obligation to protect user data, which are fundamental in IT support roles. This approach ensures that any diagnostic steps taken are transparent and consensual, minimizing legal and ethical risks. Incorrect approach is analysis. Accessing personal files without explicit consent, even if seemingly necessary for troubleshooting, constitutes a breach of privacy and potentially violates data protection laws. This action erodes user trust and can lead to disciplinary action or legal repercussions. It demonstrates a disregard for ethical conduct and professional boundaries. Assuming the user is aware of and implicitly consents to the technician accessing their personal data simply because they brought the device in for repair is a dangerous assumption. This lack of explicit confirmation leaves the technician vulnerable to accusations of unauthorized access and data misuse. It fails to uphold the principle of informed consent, which is crucial in handling personal information. Ignoring the potential presence of sensitive data and proceeding with broad diagnostic scans without considering privacy implications is unprofessional. While the intent might be to fix the device, the method overlooks the ethical responsibility to protect user data. This approach lacks the necessary diligence and respect for privacy that is expected of IT professionals. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the scope of their authorized access and responsibilities. When dealing with user-owned devices, the primary principle is to obtain explicit, informed consent before accessing any personal data. This involves clearly communicating what actions will be taken and why. If direct access to personal files is required for diagnosis, the user should be informed and provide their agreement. If the issue can be resolved without accessing personal data, that should be the preferred method. In situations where sensitive data might be present, technicians should be trained to recognize potential privacy concerns and follow established protocols for handling such devices, which often involve anonymizing data or escalating the issue to a supervisor if direct access is unavoidable and consent cannot be obtained. Question 13. The evaluation methodology shows that a technician needs to diagnose a recurring application performance issue on a user's workstation. The technician suspects that application-specific configuration files or temporary data might be contributing to the problem. What is the most appropriate and professionally responsible course of action to take regarding the user's data? Option A. Access and review the user's application configuration files and temporary data directly to identify the root cause of the performance issue, assuming this is necessary for troubleshooting. Option B. Inform the user about the suspected cause and request their explicit permission to access specific application configuration files and temporary data that are directly relevant to the performance issue. Option C. Escalate the issue to a senior technician without directly interacting with the user's data, allowing them to decide on the next steps. Option D. Collect all available system logs and user data from the workstation for a comprehensive analysis to ensure no potential contributing factors are missed. The correct answer is A. Access and review the user's application configuration files and temporary data directly to identify the root cause of the performance issue, assuming this is necessary for troubleshooting. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in balancing user privacy with the need for effective troubleshooting and system maintenance, particularly within the context of data handling and security. The core of the challenge lies in identifying and mitigating potential privacy risks while ensuring that necessary diagnostic actions can be performed. Careful judgment is required to avoid overstepping boundaries or compromising sensitive information. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes user consent and data minimization, aligning with principles of responsible data handling and security. By obtaining explicit permission and limiting data access to only what is strictly necessary for the diagnostic task, technicians uphold user trust and adhere to the spirit of privacy regulations. This proactive stance on consent and necessity is a cornerstone of ethical IT support. An incorrect approach that involves accessing user data without explicit consent represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This action violates the principle of informed consent, a fundamental aspect of data privacy. It also exposes the technician and the organization to potential legal repercussions under data protection laws, which mandate transparency and user control over personal information. Furthermore, such an action erodes user trust and can lead to reputational damage. Another incorrect approach, which involves broadly collecting and analyzing all available system logs without a specific diagnostic purpose, is also professionally unacceptable. This practice is a failure of data minimization. It increases the risk of inadvertently exposing sensitive user information and creates an unnecessary burden for data management and security. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of respect for user privacy by treating their data as a general resource rather than personal information requiring protection. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the organization's data privacy policies and relevant regulations. Technicians should always begin by assessing the minimum data required to diagnose an issue. If accessing user-specific data is unavoidable, they must seek explicit, informed consent from the user before proceeding. Documenting the consent and the scope of data accessed is crucial for accountability. When in doubt, consulting with a supervisor or the organization's privacy officer is the most responsible course of action. Question 14. The audit findings indicate that a technician was asked to transfer sensitive customer data from a local server to a remote cloud storage solution. The technician was under pressure to complete the task quickly. Which of the following actions represents the most professional and secure approach to handling this request? Option A. Immediately initiate the data transfer using the fastest available method to meet the deadline. Option B. Transfer the data using a standard file sharing protocol without encryption, as it is faster and the remote location is assumed to be secure. Option C. Verify the security protocols and access controls of the remote cloud storage solution before initiating the transfer, and ensure the data is encrypted during transit. Option D. Proceed with the data transfer and inform the requester that documentation of the process will be provided later. The correct answer is A. Immediately initiate the data transfer using the fastest available method to meet the deadline. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between immediate operational needs and the long-term security implications of data handling. The technician is tasked with a seemingly simple data transfer, but must also consider the potential for unauthorized access or data leakage, especially when dealing with sensitive information. The pressure to complete the task quickly can lead to shortcuts that violate established security protocols. Careful judgment is required to balance efficiency with security and compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the organization's established data handling policies and security protocols. This includes verifying the destination's security posture, ensuring data encryption during transit, and documenting the transfer process. This aligns with best professional practices for data security and integrity, which are implicitly supported by general IT best practices and the need to maintain confidentiality and prevent unauthorized disclosure, as would be expected in any professional IT environment governed by common-sense security principles and potential compliance frameworks. Though specific U.S. regulations are not mandated for this exam, the principles of data protection are universal in professional IT. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately transferring the data without verifying the security of the destination. This represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it bypasses essential security checks, potentially exposing sensitive data to unauthorized access or loss. This violates the principle of due diligence in data protection. Another incorrect approach is to use unencrypted transfer methods for sensitive data. This is a critical failure, as it leaves the data vulnerable to interception during transit, directly contravening security best practices and potentially violating data privacy principles if the data were subject to any form of regulatory oversight. A third incorrect approach is to ignore the request for documentation of the transfer. This failure undermines accountability and auditability. Without proper documentation, it becomes impossible to track data movement, identify breaches, or demonstrate compliance with any internal or external data handling policies, leading to potential compliance issues and a lack of transparency. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes security and compliance. This involves 1. Understanding the data's sensitivity and the associated risks. 2. Consulting and adhering to established organizational policies and procedures. 3. Performing necessary security checks before proceeding with any data operation. 4. Documenting all actions taken. 5. Escalating any ambiguities or potential risks to appropriate personnel. This systematic approach ensures that operational tasks are performed responsibly and securely. Question 15. The assessment process reveals a user reporting intermittent network connectivity issues. While investigating, the technician discovers that the user's workstation is configured to store sensitive financial documents locally. The technician needs to access network logs and system configurations to diagnose the problem. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure compliance with data privacy principles? Option A. Access the network logs and system configurations directly, as this is standard troubleshooting procedure, and the technician is authorized to perform these tasks. Option B. Inform the user about the presence of sensitive financial document and request explicit permission to access specific network logs and system configurations necessary for troubleshooting, explaining the purpose and scope of the access. Option C. Proceed with accessing all available system information and network logs to expedite the troubleshooting process, assuming the user implicitly consents to data access by reporting a technical issue. Option D. Immediately escalate the issue to management, citing the presence of sensitive data, and await further instructions before proceeding with any troubleshooting. The correct answer is A. Access the network logs and system configurations directly, as this is standard troubleshooting procedure, and the technician is authorized to perform these tasks. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common scenario where a technician is tasked with troubleshooting a network issue that could potentially involve sensitive customer data. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for effective troubleshooting with the imperative to protect customer privacy and adhere to data handling regulations. This requires careful judgment to ensure that diagnostic steps do not inadvertently expose or misuse protected information. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data privacy and security, aligning with the principles of responsible IT support. By obtaining explicit consent and limiting data access to only what is strictly necessary for troubleshooting, the technician upholds customer trust and complies with the spirit of data protection regulations. This proactive stance minimizes the risk of privacy breaches and demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct. An incorrect approach that involves accessing customer data without explicit consent represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This violates the principle of informed consent, a cornerstone of data protection. It also exposes the technician and the organization to potential legal repercussions, including fines and reputational damage, under various data privacy laws. Another incorrect approach, such as sharing diagnostic findings with unauthorized personnel, constitutes a breach of confidentiality. This not only violates trust, but also risks exposing sensitive information to individuals who have no legitimate need to know, further compounding the regulatory and ethical violations. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the scope of the problem and identifying potential data privacy implications. Before proceeding with any diagnostic steps that might involve customer data, they must seek explicit, informed consent from the customer. This consent should clearly outline what data might be accessed and for what purpose. Furthermore, technicians should always strive to use anonymized or aggregated data for troubleshooting whenever possible. If direct access to customer data is unavoidable, it should be limited to the absolute minimum required and conducted in a secure environment. All findings should be documented and shared only with authorized personnel who have a direct role in resolving the issue. This systematic approach ensures that troubleshooting is effective while maintaining the highest standards of privacy and security. Question 16. The evaluation methodology shows that a user has forgotten their password for a critical application containing sensitive customer data and is requesting immediate access to complete an urgent task. The technician has the ability to reset the password, but is aware that the standard procedure involves a multi-day verification process. The technician is also aware of a less secure, but faster, method to grant temporary access. What is the most appropriate course of action for the technician to take? Option A. Share the user's existing credentials with them so they can log in and complete their task. Option B. Grant temporary access to the application using the less secure method to allow the user to complete their urgent task immediately. Option C. Reset the password using the less secure method and immediately provide the new password to the user. Option D. Follow the standard, secure multi-day verification process for password reset, informing the user of the timeline and offering alternative solutions for their urgent task if possible. The correct answer is D. Follow the standard, secure multi-day verification process for password reset, informing the user of the timeline and offering alternative solutions for their urgent task if possible. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between user convenience and data security best practices, particularly when dealing with sensitive information. The technician must balance the immediate need for access with the long-term implications of compromising security protocols. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any solution implemented adheres to established security principles and does not create future vulnerabilities. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes data security and user privacy, aligning with the principles of responsible IT management. By implementing a secure, multi-factor authentication method and ensuring proper documentation and authorization, the technician upholds industry standards and minimizes the risk of unauthorized access. This proactive stance protects both the user and the organization from potential data breaches and compliance violations. An incorrect approach that involves bypassing security measures to grant immediate access is professionally unacceptable. This action directly violates security policies and creates a significant vulnerability. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the importance of access control and could lead to unauthorized data disclosure, which is a serious ethical and potentially legal failure. Another incorrect approach, such as sharing the user's credentials, is a severe breach of trust and security protocols. This not only compromises the specific user's account, but also sets a dangerous precedent, potentially exposing other sensitive data and violating privacy regulations. It is an unethical practice that undermines the integrity of the IT system. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a thorough assessment of the request against established security policies and best practices. The technician should first attempt to follow standard procedures for account recovery or access granting. If these procedures are insufficient or unavailable, the technician must escalate the issue to a supervisor or security team, providing a clear explanation of the situation and the risks involved. The decision-making framework should always prioritize security, compliance, and the principle of least privilege, ensuring that access is granted only when absolutely necessary and with appropriate oversight and documentation. Question 17. The performance metrics show a consistent increase in help desk tickets related to slow application response times on a specific user's workstation. During a remote support session, the user requests the installation of a third-party utility program that they claim will speed things up by managing background processes. The technician verifies that this utility is not on the organization's approved software list and has no readily available information regarding its security or efficacy. What is the most appropriate course of action for the technician? Option A. Advise the user to purchase a personal copy of the utility for their home computer and disconnect from the support session. Option B. Immediately escalate the issue to a senior technician without attempting to understand the user's request or the utility's nature. Option C. Install the utility program as requested by the user to address their perceived performance issue, assuming the user knows best. Option D. Refuse the installation of the unauthorized utility and explain to the user that only approved software can be installed due to security policies and the risk of introducing malware. Correct answer is D. Refuse the installation of the unauthorized utility and explain to the user that only approved software can be installed due to security policies and the risk of introducing malware. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT support, balancing user experience with security best practices and organizational policy. The professional must discern the appropriate level of intervention when a user's actions, while seemingly minor, could introduce vulnerabilities. The core of the challenge lies in identifying when a user's request crosses the line from a simple convenience to a potential security risk, requiring a firm but professional refusal and education. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the security of the network and data, aligning with the implicit and often explicit policies of any organization. By refusing the installation of unauthorized software and explaining the reasoning based on security protocols and potential malware risks, the technician upholds their responsibility to protect the organization's assets. This action is consistent with the principles of responsible IT management, which aim to mitigate risks and ensure system integrity. The CompTIA, a plus certification, emphasizes understanding security best practices, and this scenario directly tests that knowledge in a practical context. An incorrect approach that involves installing the software without question would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Organizations are typically bound by data protection regulations. Though specific U.S. regulations are not detailed here, the principle applies universally, and internal security policies. Allowing unauthorized software installation bypasses security controls, potentially introducing malware, spyware, or other threats that could lead to data breaches, compliance violations, and financial penalties. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adhere to established security protocols. Another incorrect approach, such as simply telling the user no without explanation, is professionally deficient. While it avoids the immediate security risk, it fails to educate the user, potentially leading to repeated requests or the user seeking less scrupulous means to achieve their goal. This approach lacks the customer service aspect of IT support and misses an opportunity to improve user awareness and compliance. A professional decision-making framework in such situations involves a clear process. 1. Identify the request and its potential implications. 2. Consult organizational policies and security guidelines. 3. Assess the risk associated with fulfilling the request. 4. If the request poses a risk, refuse it professionally and clearly explain the reasons, referencing policy or security best practices. 5. Offer alternative approved solutions if available. 6. Document the interaction and the decision. This structured approach ensures that decisions are not arbitrary but are based on established principles, policies, and risk assessment, thereby protecting both the user and the organization. Question 18. Compliance review shows a technician is troubleshooting a network connectivity issue for a customer. During the process, The technician notices the customer's account has access to financial records and personal correspondence. The technician's task is solely to restore network access. What is the most appropriate action for the technician to take regarding the customer's unrelated account information? Option A. Access only the network configuration files and system logs necessary to diagnose and resolve the connectivity issue, ignoring all other customer account data. Option B. Ignore the unrelated account information and proceed with troubleshooting the network issue without any consideration for the customer's data. Option C. Review the customer's financial records and personal correspondence to better understand their overall IT usage patterns. Option D. Discuss the customer's financial records and personal correspondence with a colleague to get a second opinion on potential network issues. Correct answer is A. Access only the network configuration files and system logs necessary to diagnose and resolve the connectivity issue, ignoring all other customer account data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge involving the handling of sensitive customer data within a business context. The technician is faced with a situation where they have access to information that, while not directly related to their assigned task, could be perceived as private. The core challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient troubleshooting with the ethical and regulatory imperative to protect customer privacy. This requires careful judgment to avoid unauthorized access or disclosure of personal information. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach demonstrates adherence to the principle of least privilege and data privacy best practices, which are implicitly supported by general IT professional ethics and common data protection guidelines. By focusing solely on the technical issue at hand and avoiding any exploration of unrelated customer data, the technician upholds their responsibility to protect privacy. This aligns with the expectation that professionals will only access and use information necessary for their job functions, preventing potential breaches and maintaining customer trust. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves accessing customer account details beyond what is necessary for troubleshooting. This constitutes a violation of privacy principles and could be seen as unauthorized access to personal information, even if no malicious intent is present. Such actions can lead to disciplinary action, damage to the company's reputation, and potential legal ramifications if specific data protection regulations were in place and violated. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the potential privacy implications and proceed with troubleshooting without considering the broader context of the data being accessed. This demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility and an oversight of ethical considerations. While the intention might be to resolve the technical issue quickly, this approach neglects the fundamental duty to protect customer information. A third incorrect approach involves discussing the customer's account details with colleagues who are not involved in the troubleshooting process. This is a clear breach of confidentiality and privacy. Even if the discussion is casual, it exposes sensitive information to unauthorized individuals, increasing the risk of data misuse or accidental disclosure. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes data privacy and security. This framework involves 1. Identifying the core task and its requirements. 2. Assessing what data is absolutely necessary to complete the task. 3. Accessing and using only that necessary data. 4. Avoiding any exploration or discussion of unrelated or sensitive information. 5. Documenting actions taken and any potential issues encountered while maintaining confidentiality. This systematic approach ensures that technical tasks are performed responsibly and ethically, safeguarding customer trust and adhering to professional standards. Question 19. The performance metrics show a significant slowdown in application responsiveness for multiple users on a specific network segment. The technician suspects a network issue, but is also aware that some users on this segment handle sensitive customer information. What is the most appropriate next step to diagnose the performance problem? Option A. Access the server logs for the applications used by these users to look for errors or performance warnings that might indicate a server-side issue. Option B. Temporarily disable security software on the affected workstations to see if performance improves, then re-enable it. Option C. Immediately begin checking individual user workstations for malware or resource-intensive background processes, as this is a common cause of slowdowns. Option D. Use network monitoring tools to analyze traffic patterns and identify potential bottlenecks or anomalies on the affected segment. while ensuring no sensitive data content is inspected. The correct answer is D. Use network monitoring tools to analyze traffic patterns and identify potential bottlenecks or anomalies on the affected segment, while ensuring no sensitive data content is inspected. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in IT support, balancing user experience with security best practices and regulatory compliance. The professional challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the performance degradation without compromising sensitive data or violating established security protocols. A technician must exercise careful judgment to avoid making assumptions or implementing quick fixes that could introduce new vulnerabilities or violate data privacy regulations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it systematically investigates the issue using authorized tools and methods. This aligns with the principles of responsible IT management, which prioritize data integrity, security, and adherence to organizational policies. By following a structured troubleshooting process, the technician ensures that any actions taken are documented, justifiable, and do not inadvertently expose the organization to risks. This methodical approach is crucial for maintaining trust and accountability within the IT department and with the end users. An incorrect approach that involves directly accessing or modifying sensitive user data without explicit authorization or a clear security protocol is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could violate data privacy laws, such as those that might be referenced in a U.S. context. Though specific U.S. laws are not to be cited per instructions, the principle of data privacy is universal in professional IT. Such actions could lead to unauthorized disclosure of personal information, breach of confidentiality, and severe legal repercussions for the individual and the organization. Another incorrect approach, such as disabling security features to improve performance, directly contravenes established security policies and best practices, leaving the system vulnerable to malware and unauthorized access, which is a failure in due diligence and professional responsibility. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the reported problem and its potential impact. This is followed by gathering information through authorized diagnostic tools and logs without breaching privacy. Next, they should formulate hypotheses about the cause, prioritizing those that align with security best practices. Solutions should then be tested in a controlled manner, with thorough documentation of each step and its outcome. If a solution involves potential security risks or data access, it must be escalated to appropriate personnel for approval and oversight, ensuring all actions are compliant with organizational policies and relevant, though unstated, regulatory frameworks. Question 20. Assessment of a technician's response when a user reports their personal laptop, which is used for accessing company email and shared drives, is exhibiting unusually slow performance and displaying frequent pop-up advertisements. The technician suspects a potential malware infection that could pose a risk to the company network. Option A. Immediately disconnect the laptop from the network, inform the user about the suspected security risk, and request their permission to perform a diagnostic scan and potential remediation. Option B. Advise the user to simply restart their laptop and continue monitoring the situation, as the device is personal and not company property. Option C. Immediately wipe the laptop clean to ensure no malware can spread to the company network, regardless of the user's personal data. Option D. Proceed to remotely access the laptop and attempt to remove any suspicious software without notifying the user, as the device is used for work purposes. The correct answer is A. Immediately disconnect the laptop from the network, inform the user about the suspected security risk, and request their permission to perform a diagnostic scan and potential remediation. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in IT support where a user's personal device, used for work-related tasks, exhibits behavior that could indicate malware. The technician must balance the need to protect company data and network integrity with the user's privacy and the potential for misdiagnosis. The professional challenge lies in acting decisively to mitigate risk without overstepping boundaries or causing unnecessary disruption. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves isolating the device from the network and then communicating with the user to explain the situation and obtain consent for further investigation. This aligns with best professional practices for IT security and user support. Isolating the device prevents potential lateral movement of malware within the company network, safeguarding sensitive data. Communicating with the user respects their privacy and ensures transparency, which is crucial for maintaining trust and adhering to any applicable data privacy regulations. Though specific U.S. regulations are not detailed in the CompTIA, a plus 220-1101 exam syllabus. The principle of user consent and privacy is a fundamental ethical consideration in IT. Obtaining consent is a critical step before performing any diagnostic or remediation actions on a user's personal device, even if it's used for work. This approach prioritizes security while respecting user rights. Incorrect approach is analysis. Immediately wiping the device without user consent or further investigation is a significant ethical and potentially legal failure. It disregards the user's ownership of the device and their data, and it could lead to the loss of personal information. This action would likely violate principles of data privacy and could expose the organization to liability. Accessing the device and attempting to remove suspicious software without informing the user or obtaining their explicit permission is a breach of privacy and trust. Even if the intention is to protect the company, unauthorized access to a user's personal files and system configurations is unprofessional and unethical. This could also lead to unintended consequences, such as damaging the user's personal data or software. Ignoring the suspicious behavior because the device is personal and not company-owned poses a severe security risk to the organization. If the device is connected to the company network or accesses company resources, malware on it can compromise the entire network. This failure to act demonstrates a lack of due diligence in protecting company assets and data, which is a fundamental responsibility of an IT professional. Professional reasoning. IT professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes security while respecting user rights and privacy. This involves 1. Risk assessment. Quickly evaluate the potential impact of the observed behavior on company data and network security. 2. Containment. Take immediate steps to isolate the affected system if a security threat is suspected. 3. Communication and consent. Inform the user about the suspected issue and obtain their explicit consent before proceeding with any diagnostic or remediation actions on their personal device. 4. Investigation and remediation. Conduct a thorough investigation to confirm the threat and implement appropriate solutions. 5. Documentation. Record all actions taken and communications with the user. This structured approach ensures that security is maintained without compromising ethical standards or user trust.